For some people, being alone feels like peace. A quiet morning, soft light, no noise pulling at them. But for others, solitude wasn't a preference. It was something they slowly learned to live inside. Not everyone who is alone feels the same way about it. Some choose solitude because it restores them. Others end up there because it feels safer than being misunderstood again. You notice them in social spaces. They show up, they're polite, they don't stay long. They decline invitations gently, always with a reasonable excuse. They say, "I'm fine," in a way that sounds complete, yet somehow unfinished. They're not antisocial, they're attentive. They listen more than they speak, and when they do speak, it's usually after weighing the moment. For many of them, solitude is where their system resets. It's where their thoughts can breathe, where creativity forms without interruption, where meaning matters more than numbers. One deep conversation outweighs a dozen surface ones. Alone doesn't feel empty to them, it feels spacious. But there's another kind of solitude that looks the same from the outside and feels very different from the inside. For some, being alone isn't just restoration, it's armor. It forms after disappointment, after being emotionally overlooked, after learning, quietly and early, that relying on people can be risky. So they adapt. They become capable, self-contained, the kind of person who figures things out without asking. They cancel plans not because they don't care, but because part of them is tired of explaining themselves. They sit with problems alone, even when help is offered, because needing someone once felt unsafe. From the outside, it looks like strength, confidence, independence. But underneath, there's often an ache that never learned where to go. Psychologically, this isn't weakness, it's adaptation. When emotional support isn't consistent, the mind learns self-regulation. Awareness sharpens. You read tone shifts. You sense distance early. You manage your emotions internally because you had to. This wasn't learned in comfort. It was learned to survive. But survival strategies always come with a cost. Protective solitude can make closeness feel threatening. Trust becomes slow. Depending on someone feels unnatural. You get so good at handling everything alone that letting someone in feels like losing control. Pain gets hidden behind competence. "I've got it" becomes a shield. And that's the paradox. Solitude gives freedom, but it can also create distance. It offers safety, but sometimes at the price of connection. Independence feels powerful, yet there are moments when the quiet feels heavier than peaceful. And none of this means something is wrong with you. People like this aren't broken. They're survivors. They're thinkers. They're feelers who learned to be careful with their depth. The goal isn't to abandon solitude, and it isn't to force connection either. Growth begins with awareness, knowing when being alone is healing you, and knowing when it's protecting a wound that still deserves care. Because solitude can be a home, and sometimes it can be a hiding place. And if you think back to that quiet morning, the peace you feel there is real. Just make sure it's peace, not something you learned to accept when you needed safety. So ask yourself this, honestly. Do you truly enjoy your own company? Or do you sometimes long for connection even while telling yourself you don't need it?